Good evening. My name is Cyrus Gray. Today is Sunday, December 10th, 2023. I am in Monrovia, Liberia, and I'd like to welcome you to today's edition of Elections Central. Today, we're going to be having a list of panelists, and we're going to be discussing a few relevant topics concerning governance in Liberia, access to capital, financial management of public resources, especially capital. We're going to be talking about energy and its relevance for development. And then we'll have a last topic will be on accountability and the integrity institutions that have been set up, how they function in the past, and how can they be set up as we go forward. And the backdrop of this conversation are based on a notion that everybody has that Liberia now is in a period of promise. We have a new president-elect, Ambassador Joseph Boakai. Generally, he's known to be a man of integrity, but he has a clean slate, and Liberians are hopeful all over. There is a good air in Liberia. People are hopeful that the right things will be done this time to set the country on the right pace. So today we have a chain of expert guests. We have with us our normal co-host, Michael Rennie out of Minnesota. We have Alphonso. We also have Councillor James Verdier, who's a co-host, but he will double as the lead on the issue of integrity. And then we have with us today Benedict George Fuller. He's been a consultant working at the Ministry of Finance and Development Rennie for a couple of years. He comes with a lot of understanding of the institution. He's back here in the States and working with, I think, the state government Atlanta, I'm not sure, but some public institutions. So he's going to be with us and give us his insight too as we talk about public financial management. We also have with us Francis Hinnah. He comes from, he's based in Canada. Francis Hinnah worked with the Ministry of Public Works. He's one of the proponents of local government. He's worked in government in Canada, and he will bring that perspective to us. All these guests are not new to us. We also have with us technology expert. He's presently working more actively in oil and gas. Elkenah Phillips. He's out of Houston. I follow him with passion the last few days as he talked about what we can do differently about energy. One of the errors that we've made since the end of the war was not to prioritize electricity. Nothing happens significantly without reliable and affordable electricity. Today, our electricity penetration by the main carrier, LEC, is just around 17%. Significantly low for a country that is looking out for investments in light to heavy industries that will be able to employ significant number of people. So our guests are beginning to filter in. As soon as they're here, we'll begin our program. So we'll be back and start full scale in a few seconds. Well, I'd like to welcome Michael Rennie and Benedict Phillips. You guys can hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, Ben, I can hear you. Marco, are you there? I see you're muted. Okay, Marco is here. I also like to welcome Councilor Verdier. Gentlemen, how you guys doing? Councilor, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. I was trying to give an opportunity to our guests to say something first, but let me join you in welcoming Mr. Foley. As usual, Michael is good to have you. And Cyrus, I have to say on the onset of this discussion that you've actually put together a lively, organized discussion. I do appreciate it. And I was just looking at your bio, but it looks like you created a very good bio, but didn't want people to look at it much, so you just browsed through it and just went past like that. But this looks like an important platform right now in the discussion. I look forward to it. So I look forward to welcoming the other guests, Mr. Benedict Foley. I join Cyrus and Michael in welcoming you to this platform.
Thanks for having me again. And when it comes to Liberia, I think we're all always willing to share our thoughts. And I hope anyone cool. My take on the topics, I think it seems to be very, very broad, and there's a lot of things that you need to talk about. At least if we're going to focus on sector at a time and we're all coming and talk about it. Because I work with a PFM in Liberia, but I was specifically responsible for a specific component. That's the SOE sector, the public corporations. And I hope we can all come together and talk about the public corporation on one day, because I think I have a lot of expertise in that area as well in managing public corporation and where it stands at present. Because I think, anyway, let's jump into the discussion and we'll talk about it. But the public corporation is something that I think we have to focus on as well.
Okay, Ben. Marco, you wanted to say something to start up?
Marco is frozen.
Marco seems to be frozen, or he's exhausted or something. But here's the deal. So we selected an array of topics, 4 topics that we.
Yes, it's taking me a little while.
We have 2 hours of programming. My hope was we're going to talk about each topic at least within a 30-minute roundabout scope, and give the flow mode to the one who has more knowledge and experience in that area, so we can get it. So we'll do the best we can. We should have started with governance with Francis Hinnah. He's still late in coming, and Ben, you make a good point. My thinking was that you would bring to us some perspective about public management with your experience from the Ministry of Finance. Now that I know that your focus were on the SOEs, then that's what we should do. So tell us about what is it, how the Ministry of Finance was overseeing SOEs, what some of the challenges are. We'll throw some questions to you for some of the concerns we have, for me particularly about something like the port and all that. So we as the other guys come in, we gradually move from one topic to another. But I wanted to give us some context in these discussions, and I thought I ran to the Palm Grove Cemetery today. If you are listening and you don't know what the Palm Grove Cemetery is, it's one of the oldest burial places in the center of Monrovia. It runs along Central Street and some part of McLean and Lane Street. And it is the burial place of many of the founders, including, I think, 8 presidents and President Joseph Jenkins Ravers. Now, since we're talking to a global audience, especially in the Liberian diaspora also, I thought it would be good for us to use just a short footage, 3 minutes or 4, of picture of the Palm Grove Cemetery today, where some of our founders lie and how it is being taken care of. It will give you an idea of what has been happening in Liberia as we discuss these specific topics. So indulge me, let me see if we can run that tape. Good afternoon from the old city of and then will you been on the discussion of public finance from the perspective of the challenges, opportunities, and prospects. So this is the bottom part of the salting end of the Palm Grove Cemetery from Center Street. And I will just run one block up to Benson Street, and then we'll shut that off and we can jump into our discussion. This footage was done today. I'm sitting in the car and just I mean today, real today.
That's
Remind you, today is Sunday.
That's a cleaning exercise.
No, the people hanging around picking up stuff from the garbage can or going into graves and steal and doing whatever, probably living there. So both on the left and right side with all the vegetation should actually be graveyards.
Wow.
House on the left there is almost a headquarters for Zugos. Street dwellers, mainly on drug. I mean, if you don't know what Zugo is. Okay, I think I make the point. The whole idea of running that tape was to bring us to give us some context of what's happening today. It's easy to talk about the big things. I know there are many other things that are okay in Monrovia. There is a new park being built somewhere behind the BTC, the site of the execution of the 13 and 12 officials. And it's as though nothing happened there. They were building a football and some park there. So let's jump to Ben. Ben, we'll start our discussion on public finance management, but from the perspective of the small, the state-owned enterprises, which was your task at the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning. I'll let you take it which way you want.
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to say thank you again. Thank you for welcoming me to this platform. And I'd just like to introduce myself again. I work with the Ministry of Finance for a little, maybe 6 years. And basically, I was a recruiter from here on a World Bank project and came to Liberia to work with public corporations. We're going through the reform cycle of the public corporations. And there was certain reform aspect that were required of the public corporation, and we were tasked to implement that reform for the public corporation sector. And I worked there for some time with the Ellen government. I think I worked with 3 finance ministers. I worked with Amara. I worked with Boima. And I also worked with the current government, but for some reason I'm here today. And one of the reasons I would just like to go over the definition of public finance management. And public finance management it's a law. It's a law that is translated by government into a sustainable budget and policy process that will be used to implement the budget to support service delivery. That's generally what public finance management is all about. But within the public finance management law, there is the information system, and because we use that government financial management information system to setting some controls within government that will develop some level of efficiency and curtail corruption. So when I was there, and this is one of the things we try to do as with the public corporation, is to make sure that the operation was open, transparent, and reporting was effective when it comes to making sure that the available resources that the government require, I think that it should be transmitted to government. So I worked with them for some time. But what I would say is that there are certain things that is required when you implementing PFM law or a PFM program. The first thing you have to be committed, and there should be a buy-in from top management to be able to say, look, and if we want to implement these kind of reforms, we all have to buy into it and other things, and you have to make sure you have that committed people to do it. The management of the PFM coordination unit, the Ministry of Finance, various public corporation managing directors, and so that is spearheaded to make sure that the reforms that is prior that is implemented. So what we try to do over there, or what will happen is that there are certain things that the government wants for all public corporation to use one standard system. Like for example, when we came in, all government institutions, public corporation were reporting on different timeline. So one of the reform process was to make sure that everybody has the same timeline of reporting, and that should correlate with the government-owned timeline of reporting. And we have some government institutions like public corporation using fiscal year reporting, and some of them using annual year reporting. And one of the things we try to come in and do and make sure that everybody stick to one timeline, and the reporting process should be annual reporting. And then a couple of things that we have to do is to see how best that the reporting process, the reporting is timely and is effective. And every report is supposed to be made 1 month after the quarter's end, because we are not dealing with monthly reporting. Because what we do where I work right now is a monthly reporting, but Liberia was a quarterly reporting. Whenever the quarter ends, you have to make sure that your report is ready, and we'll do a thorough analysis on the report, and then inform the finance minister as to what needs to be done moving forward. Because I will reporting directly to the finance minister, and so I will just go through one or two things that I listed here to just be able to inform you guys. Because PFM law requires commitment resources, and one thing is people. What you have to do is to have committed people, leadership, and team building, government buy-in. Minister of Finance has to be the champion of the PFM reform. You have to get the Minister of Finance to say, okay, we want to implement certain reforms, and we're going to be the champion of it to make sure that all institutions, public corporation, and other government agencies adopt these processes and what have you. The process also is one of the things that you have to consider when it comes to PFM reform. Because what it tries to do is to understand where the gaps are, and you do a gap analysis of the framework that you're using to implement PFM reform. And once you do this, you can understand where the weaknesses are when it comes to corruption, when it comes to reporting, and when it comes to the legal framework, what kind of laws need to be strengthened out of that.
Losing Ben, can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Alphonso,
What laws? Yeah.
Go ahead, we hear you.
And then technology. One thing, is technology. Get the right technology in place, because what it creates better budgeting, and it also creates better planning, and it also try to create some level of transparency within the system. But you always have to make sure that you have an idea to study, to do a gap analysis when it comes to all these processes that you put in place to understand where are the weaknesses and what are the strengths. Moving forward with the current government coming in, there's certain things they need to do, and they'll come in right away as a new government. The first thing you need to do a diagnostic of the PFM system. And because one of the things you have to understand, the legal framework is the legal framework working effectively, that the service delivery that require of government is delivering to the people. It's the institutional structure in a place where it can be satisfied and the system runs smoothly. And sometimes the legacy program, what are the legacy program that is sitting out there that is dominant that you need to get rid of also. And also, and once you have the diagnostics, and one of the things is lead to at least the better fiscal control. Once you put all these things into place, and also better cash management system, we timeline and access to reporting. So what I would say to you is that the PFM is critical for the new government coming in, and whosoever that comes in as a new finance minister need to grab hold of the PFM unit, PFM coordination unit at the Ministry of Finance, to make sure that some of the reforms that you require or some of the reforms that you want to implement in the new government coming forward can be implemented. So I will probably stop there for now, maybe take a couple of questions, and then maybe we can continue the discussion from there.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Thanks very much. But let me start off with the first question, though, and I'll make some assumptions before I ask the question. If those assumptions are wrong, correct me. So the state-owned enterprises were basically created as government business. For example, the Port Authority, LEC, they were intended to provide services, but earn money to supplement government's budget, right?
Exactly.
So in your period for overseeing the planning and finance, what did you notice about these SOEs generally meeting that requirement? Were they contributing to the budget? One, if the PFM laws are to be implemented, is the Ministry of Finance in a position to influence the leadership that is sent to those SOEs to ensure that in fact, they are effectively operated?
One of the things you have to understand when we get in there, because when we're recruited from here, we have all these ministers, the public, the LPRC buzz, the National Port Authority, Maritime, all the guys, and most of the guys and was very powerful people in government. And we came in as a technician trying to help them. We're not there trying to say we're coming in to order you, but we're coming in to see how best we can strengthen your own system to be able to be efficient and effective in developing your financial statement and making timely report and transmitting the dividend that you have to government. And one of the things we noticed the first time when we were there, it was very difficult to get reports, financial reports from the Liberia Public Corporation. Very difficult. Because people see it like something that they don't need to show to the public. And these information are public document. Once you work with government and you do a financial statement, it should be made public to the people to be able to see what the money is being worth. It was very difficult to get documents from, especially like that thing, for example, NOCAR at the time when we came in with one of the big companies to get report from NOCAR was very, very difficult. We couldn't get a report. I remember one instances, and we were going back and forth trying to get a report from the car. And I called him, I think the CFO, and he said, look, just how you come here for a report, just how you're going to walk back to your office, and you're not going to get a report for you. And that was the situation we had. But what happened, what the process looked like is that at the beginning of the year, SOE is supposed to submit the report, the budget to the finance ministry. we'll look at the budget and see where we can create savings for the government for more dividend to be transferred to the government coffers. So in that framework, we try to work with the SOE, we try to work with the government and advise the government and say, look, this is how it looks like. And I think when it comes to maritime or LPRC, NPA, this is what we think this should be transmitted to the government at the end of the fiscal period. This is the dividend I think they can transmit. But if after all these processes been put in place, it has to go to the national legislatures, and they do their own during the budget hearing. They do their own lock bang, moving, shifting, and other thing. And at the end of the day, that's how it works. And, but for us, we want to advise. We're just there to advise the minister to say, look, this is what needs to happen, and that's how we manage SOE moving forward.
Nice.
Yeah, so okay, let's go to my understanding of the SOEs was that yes, they are government service delivery arms, not established for the sole purpose or even for the purpose of making money, but to provide the citizens with the services that the government is responsible to provide. In the process, if they make money, that is fine, but that they are subsidized even by government where they are unable to raise the revenue to operate and to provide the services that government wants to provide.
Alphonso, first I want to differ with that before you go forward.
Yeah, I just wanted to finish because I think there are some SOE out there purposely to make money to support the government budget. That's one of the things I just want to establish.
If you go back to the history of the SOEs,
they
were created as government business. They were created to make government.
I'm coming, guys. Let me land, and then everybody will have an opportunity.
I think the subsidy word it shouldn't be subsidized.
Yeah. So Liberia Water and Seaway Corporation, for instance, I don't think in my view as established to make money for government. If it can make money, fine. But other than that, it's a water provision. It's a service. It's a government service that government wants to provide to the people, except it is privatized. Other than that, government subsidizes the water and sewer corporation. Government subsidizes individuals who cannot afford to pay for water to make sure that they get those services. That is my understanding. Now, are there other SOEs that are designed to make money? I totally agree. All SOEs designed to make money, I kind of differ with that a little bit. But that wasn't my question. I think the question there is, were those SOEs responsible to report? Are they responsible to report to the finance ministry? And if so, were they making reports to the finance ministry?
Well,
and I'm asking this question again on the ground of what is it that, from your experience, that was lacking if they were not making reports that this incoming administration needs to put into place to make sure that the reports are made so that there is accountability on both sides in terms of what finances, in terms of service delivery, and transparency.
I would just before I come to that question, to that part, I just like to throw light on water and sewer a little bit. The Liberian Water and Sewer Corporation, that is a public corporation. Their responsibility is to make money to sustain their own operations. If they make more money, they can transfer some of those dividends to government. But water and sewer over the years has been one of the institutions that has struggled a lot, purposely because one, there was bad management all through. I think even in the Elkenah government, they have some bad managers that was there. And even with the current government, the management system was very bad. And one of the things I would say that all SOE are required by law, the PFN law requires all SOE to make quarterly financial statement report to the finance ministry. They are required by law. But to get the reports from some of this entity is a difficult thing, because you have to go after them consistently to make report. So what I think needs to happen is for the government to be able to consolidate all government institution information into one financial system, especially when it comes to the IFMIS program, where you can do your budgeting, your expenditure, and your reporting, where government can access the information, because they are public corporations, they are owned by the government. If if another institution has shared it, that's a different thing. Like, take for example, LBDR government has 50% share, so government cannot really just go in and control their resources or so. But I just think all public corporations have to make quarterly financial statement to the government of Liberia, and that is through the finance ministry. But to get this report from the various corporations and ministry, not all the corporations, were lacking on making report, but most of the big ones, you have to go after them consistently. Look, you have to submit your report. The time has elapsed. There's a timing. And one of the things that with the PFM law that I think it does not have a sanction regime in the PFM law where you can sanction the public corporations when it comes to delaying submitting a report or violating the law. So that one of the things I try to advocate for, there should be a sanction regime in the PFM law that if you don't make a report, there should be a way where the government can come in and maybe just take control. So, but all SOE are required to make a quarterly report every a month after the quarter ends, and I think 2 months after the year end, you have to make your annual financial statement to the Ministry of Finance. I think 2 months.
I mean, if you look at Ben, and from your experience, you stay in Liberia and you saw the quality of leaderships that were at the SOEs, some of them at least. I'll give you an example with the port. The port finally got to be managed by a managing director whose last job was a driver at WFP. Did you guys have expectation that these people would be able to make reports?
Well, I mean, I would say this, even when you have during the Ellen government, you have all these managing director, and we still have struggled to see how best we can get reports from them. And like the NPA, you have the financial controller. I can't remember the woman's name, but it was very difficult to get reports from them. There are some other institutions. I don't think it's the government, but some of them, most of the institutions feel that whenever they deliver this kind of financial statement outside, there's a tendency that I don't know if they're afraid of the press or they don't think they need to submit this financial report. But I don't think it depends on who is there. And I know that most of the leadership within the current public corporation, they are very weak. I think that there's a need for there was a need for capacity building. But I think the report delays and not submitting report, it depends. It always depends on the management team. And so what we try to do when I was there, we try to work directly with the controller. And if the controller is delaying making our report, then we try to get to the finance minister and see how best he can get to the MD or so to be able to submit that report for analysis. And all along, I think there are some institutions that were consistent with the reporting, but there are some you have to go after them consistently. I think it will be best with the new government coming in to create a platform. So what I did lastly, before I left from there, we built an asset management program, it's a software program by which SOE will be able to go and dumping all the assets. It was the first step to making sure that we start accessing SOE report from the finance ministry. we build this asset management software where SOE can go and dump all the assets, and we will be able to look at the assets from the finance ministry and do some analysis as to what they have there and what they're purchasing or so. I don't know if that system is still working, but all SOE, I mean, the delay is, it doesn't matter who is in power or the level of competency. I just think it's the management. The management has to make that commitment that we have to make this report every month when the quarter ends. But we didn't have that commitment from some of the public corporation.
Cyrus, let me just say from a basic legal and institutional standpoint, that SOEs are actually service delivery oriented institutions that are established by government, and their purpose is one, to actually aid the government in providing basic needed services that will be quite more expensive for ordinary citizens or to report to private sector, and who would then impute high prices, a delivery amount on citizens. The government is supposed to make, government wants SOE to provide these services so that it reduces the burden, on the common citizen. And that's why when SOEs cannot generate the kind of money they're supposed to, government comes and subsidize the operational budget just to make sure that these services that require are available. Now, when they can't, they're supposed to be making profit. True. From the delivery, they're supposed to be making profit. But when they can't, government has to subsidize them because the different services are so critical to social development, to welfare, that you cannot allow them to go. So in the area of water industry, electricity, health, those kind of things, they're very critical. Those are very critical services.
Yeah.
Now, the issue of reporting, every government institution, every government agency has a responsibility to report quarterly. Every government agency. So it's an issue of bad governance. It's an issue of people not following. The laws are there.
Yeah.
The laws are there. I tell you, I'll just give you one simple example. When we're instituting asset declaration thing in Liberia under early administration, and people were reneging and didn't want to do you know what we did? We recommended to the president that under the executive, see, the asset declaration law was written in a way where each branch of government was responsible to his head, the head of that branch. So we said, no, these people who do not submit a declaration honor you, Madam President. Let's institute this. Between this time and that time, everybody should declare that. I said, if not, they don't get their salaries. And we call the Ministry of Finance in. And the first time we did that, we achieved almost 98% of people declaring their asset. That was under the early administration. And that's so what I'm trying to say is that you got to have the political will, the willpower to execute.
Exactly.
That's important. And the Ministry of Finance, that was introduced. Very beautiful system.
Very.
All public corporations, all government entities were supposed to import their data every day, and the Ministry of Finance could monitor. It was a very beautiful system. They had some hitches with technology, and internet working, but it was a good system because the Ministry of Finance could sit right in the Ministry of Finance and receive all the different data from the different institutions. It just requires willpower. It can work. The other thing, Benedict, that you have enumerated, those are things that have to do with the leadership of the different SOEs and their responsibility to the government and Ministry of Finance making sure that these things are provided. So the laws are there, the system is there. You just need to enforce it.
Yeah, I would just say this, and when it comes to some of there are some SOEs are designed purposely to generate finances. Take, for example, the National Port Authority, LPRC, the Airport Authority, Maritime, NASCO. NASCO, we consider them a quasi-institutional SOE, but they generate a lot of money. And most of the institutions, and when the Ellen government came in, I think the GMAT program came in and tried to strengthen their own internal control. To some extent, it worked, with some of these institutions. Their internal control was strengthened. Like water and sewer. Water and sewer was one of the institutions that showed to be non-dependent on government. They're supposed to operate from their own resources. I think within 5 years after GMAT program, they were supposed to be an institution that operate from their own resources. But I think part of the reason with water and sewer, I think they have a problem with infrastructure and management. And that's one of the reasons they have struggled all through the CDC government, because water and sewer came in, and when we were monitoring water and sewer, they have a staff level of 150. The first thing you start bringing in group of people, and you're bringing the staff level to 700 people. And there's no way you can manage that corporation with your own resources if you're bringing all this group of people on the payroll. And now they start reverting to the government, to the finance ministry, to pay salary. Water and sewer, the only thing they were getting, you're supposed to get from water and from finance ministry, is to carry on different projects to make sure that water supply is in their community. There are counties out of every finances that governments transmit to water and sewer was to be able to carry on projects to make sure that service delivery to the Liberian people is adequate enough. But that case was not there. Everything for the past 3 years, government was literally paying water and sewer salary, and that's one of the problems. I see that. Like the airport authority, we could understand that it went through 2 crises, the Ebola crisis, the coronavirus, and it hampered them. But one of the things, if you go in and sign some of these bad contracts with people, with SOE, you force them to sign bad contracts, it's going to diminish some of the operation efficiency within SOE. The airport went and signed this contract with this company to manage logistics, and the output was generating a lot of money from bankers' claim. That's a bankers' claim. But I think they signed another contract with a company, and then from there, after the coronavirus, the airport authority starts struggling to meet her own wage bill. So it's a very difficult thing to say. The airport shouldn't be depending on government to pay employee salaries. And the airport shouldn't be dependent on government to pay employee salary. The airport has a mechanism to raise over 10, 12, 20 million a year. And when we came there for the airport authority, we raised around 10, 15 million a year. Water and sewer raising over 5, 7 million a year, but it couldn't even raise 1 million out of. So that's some of the issues that I think is happening over there. But once you put in some mechanism with the new government coming, once you put in some mechanisms, some internal control, trying to establish some level of efficiency, I think it could work.
Well, it should work, man, because I mean, the airport is a business. If
exactly
private people were running it, it would be profitable. I mean, and I know my colleagues have said something about water and sewer, and it gives the impression that water is so essential commodity that we should just have a corporation that will give it to people for free. Water itself is a commodity that is marketable. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you come to Monrovia today, one of the biggest industries is just selling water in the sachet bag. Mm-hmm. If you have a corporation that is a monopoly in running pipelines and connecting people, and they can't even afford to get water into people's homes that people would buy. And I'm saying this because at USAID funded the rehabilitation of the water plants in Rabos, Stanley Kole, and Nyemah, 100%. Put a power system there. 100 out of 10 or 20 megawatts solar, and then generators to support it. A complete system, and hand it over to water and sewer with the agreement that we will pay the cost of running this over the next 3 years, and begin to draw down on our payment by 25% until you can take over the whole facility. By the time I was leaving USAID in 2021, that 3 years has lapsed. USAID had their hands on their head trying to figure out when will water and sewer take responsibility to manage this facility. As I speak to you now, considering what we've been through in the last government, probably it never did happen. So the idea of this discussion is to look at a better perspective. Mm-hmm. I mean, you guys who are all over the world, in Canada, in the United States, water is not something that you got to mop. They send water to your house, you pay. Is a big business. In fact, water is an essential commodity. People who cannot afford pipe water will take it from the well. but there are people who are willing to pay that amount of money for water. So water and sewer, and corporations like that have the ability to be able to generate income for government. And that brings me to my conclusion of this matter, that what we really should be asking for is, how do we make them to do this perform in such a manner that, in fact, other corporations perform around universally, provide public goods, the service is available, but it's also profitable, so that it enhances government revenue, for government to be able to spend money on those areas that it doesn't raise money. That's what the SOEs were about. And I think in the initial stages when the SOEs were established, the structure was such that I think Honor told that there was a controller of public corporations. So you have one controller, like you have the Minister of Finance, one controller who was actually managing the receivables and the disbursements for all the public corporations. So you managing director, but the finances are handled by that controller, so that when you do your budget, it's funded. They make sure they oversee your accounts people and collect that government gets a fair share of this. The airport will contribute significantly to the government revenue. And the answer to that has made us so reliant on assistance from all over and made the country very gullible. I think the way to address it first is for the leadership to have serious people who will hire the best qualified people to run those institutions with the intent that they will become efficient and profitable.
I would say this, Cyrus. I think I would say that most of the institutions right now, the public corporation, they are under severe stress from managing salary and wages. Severe stress. I mean, the water and sewer is no exception. LTA is no exception. Even NASCO and other people, because the guys, some of the they have some good managers with some of the public corporation, but the stress that were on them when to hire and to make sure that they get people into the system, I think it eats away most of the revenue. And what they focus on now is trying to pay salary, water and sewer, NPA, the airport. And they just focus on trying to pay salary and not focus on managing. Because once you can get yourself your mind of managing or on paying salary and just manage, because management is it's not just about paying salary, and it's not just about paying salary. And that's one of the things the last government failed to realize, because when they pay salary and wages, they're celebrating about it. But you have to focus on managing. Once you can manage, how best we can improve the process, how best we can improve the process to be able to deliver the service and generate more revenue with water and sewer, with transport authority. All these corporations, they on severe stress because they are bringing a lot of people on the payroll, and they can't even sustain the payroll from their own revenue that they're generating. So it's just difficult right now. And when the new government coming, I don't know the approach going forward, how they're going to approach it as to trying to manage the public corporation. But it's a very difficult thing. It's a difficult challenge for the government coming in, because you have to manage your own wage bill. The government has to manage central government wage bill, and transmitting resources to other SOEs that's supposed to be paying their own salary and wages. I don't think it's a good thing for the government coming in right now. So hopefully they're going to find a solution, but it's a very, very difficult thing right now to see how best we can get the public corporation moving and become a sustainable institution.
Okay, so I understand you say that the payroll in this public corporation and government agency have been bloated with people who do not necessarily have roles there or shouldn't be there.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, because for one thing, when I can tell you all the number of employees that were in all the public corporation before Ellen came in, and for water and sewer, you have 150 employees. But right now, before I left from there, it was about 700 people probably on the payroll at water and sewer. And with Letaco, the same thing. And they just
We're not
add
selling
people on
water.
the payroll. And I think most of the public corporation is not water and sewer, is the airport authority, is NASCO, it's everywhere. The wage bill is difficult. And with the public corporation. And how you manage to pay the salary of this public corporation, it will be very difficult. But water and sewer is one of the key one, because for a long time, I think probably they may be owing the employees about 3-4 months salary or 6 months salary now as you stand, since it's been going on for a long time. You see, so I think the
and
new
they're still hiring people, even though they can't.
They say hiring people.
They still hiring people. That's the issue.
They say in this 11th hour of the government, they are still sending lists of 100 people to hire people to Boakai come in. But that brings me to the sequel in the discussion where I'd like to welcome Gabriel Carter. And one of the things I think we've noticed, we've taken out of this discussion about the public financial management is the SOEs are not being able to perform their roles because of the allotted payroll. And that is happening because there's hardly enough work in the private sector. One of the things that bring work in the private sector is proper investment planning for private sector initiatives for attracting companies, both domestic and international. That's why I called Gabriel here, and I'm happy that he has joined. Gabriel, give us some perspective as we go into this new era with a new president. How can we source finance for private sector development, one? And how can we attract investment in the private sector? I'm one of those who believe that investment doesn't necessarily have to be foreign investment. How can we mobilize a local capital also to invest in the private sector to suck up some of this huge number of people who have been forced on corporations that cannot support the payroll?
Cyrus,
thank you.
Before we move on, sorry, I just wanted us to kind of exhaust the. Yeah, sorry, Gabriel. I just want us to kind of exhaust the SOE conversation because I think there are other elements to it besides having bloated payrolls. I believe there are other elements that make them inefficient. For instance, take LEC for example, the capacity and ability to go around and collect fees for the services that they're providing. We talk about water and sewer. Water and sewer, I mean, not everybody is a poor person that water and sewer giving water to, assuming that they even give people water. But there are some customers who probably have the capacity to pay. So those customers, as with LEC, who have the capacity to pay, water and sewer, who have the capacity to pay, how can those SOEs be improved, made effective, to be able to at least collect some of that? Because one of the things that has been happening, like I think that the U.S. ambassador mentioned that once or multiple times actually, is that LEC wasn't collecting fees from people who were capable of paying, including government officials, including government and entities were not even paying to LEC and all of those things. So I think beyond just having bloated payrolls, there are other issues within those SOEs that I really think need to be addressed, and that I thought that we kind of did in touch. So I just want to put it back on the agenda. I'm sure Brother Hinnah will have some comments on that, and I want to believe Councilor Verdier will do as well. Yeah,
sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I like that, Alphonso, so but I think we can. I think we can play the discussion on and off so that we can be able to exhaust these topics. So we don't deal with one silo, since we have finances that is related in a way to that. We can actually build upon it. To your point, I wanted to make a quick adjustment on LEC today. Is receiving for payment for service through a prepaid meter.
Yeah, that's true.
$100 into, you got a gadget, you pay for somebody to send you a number, and you enter into that leader, and then your light come up. So they are actually getting their money in fact beforehand. I don't know whether they have that same system for the government institutions, but at least for private persons and commercial businesses, the services are prepaid.
Let me just give you some quick info when it comes to LEC and water and sewer. And like most of the big businesses in Monrovia, they want LEC. But if that power can be consistent, because they run heavy machines and other things, and if the power is not consistent, they don't want to rely on it, because every time they get LEC, when the power shut off, that's a problem. Water and sewer is the same thing. Most of the big businesses, I keep telling people, LEC is a $60, $70 million company. Water and sewer is a $15, $20 million company. But once you can be able to grab the big businesses and bring them into the fold and supply the services consistently, you can be able to generate the revenue. But it is very difficult for water and sewer when you're managing. You want to focus on salary. Every time there's a pipe bomb, burst somewhere, other than you have to go rush and try to do semantic repair or something. So I just think most of these things, that management is one of the key things too when it comes to the public corporation. You got to get the right people in there to be able to manage this public corporation. Because if you just go get anybody who just want a job again and sit on there, he doesn't know what he want to do, he just want to go there and collect money, it's going to be a problem again. You see, so you get the right people in this public corporation. You make sure that management is priority. You make sure to put our finances in perspective and be able to manage that corporation, all this corporation. And one thing I would say that there's some of these things were happening. It was on the right track. LEC right now, I think they have money captain. I think he's very good, and I think they should keep him there. If whatever the case is, I think he have put in some measures and other things to make sure that there's a sustainability within LEC. And I know some of the finance guys in there too. Very brilliant finance guy in LEC. And so I just think management with some of the public corporation like NPA, I think NPA has a management problem. The airport authority has a management problem. The housing authority has a management problem. Most of the corporations has a management problem. Water and sewer, obviously, water and sewer have been having management problems since the Elkenah government. And so once you can get people with that level of commitment and say, look, I want to come and change systems. I want to come and put in place a system that would deliver the services to the Liberian people, things going to change. And but if you don't have it, if people come in there and if it is an avenue to generate money for themselves, forget it. And it will not work. It will not work.
Okay.
Cyrus, I think you're backstage.
Cyrus has disappeared again.
No. I mean, the floor is open for us to have a discussion.
Yeah.
And as soon as Carter can come in, I'll be fine. I just like to talk since we discussed.
He's backstage. May I add him?
I just wanted to add to what others were saying right now when it
but
comes to
before that, I mean, Gabriel, I know Cyrus did. Yeah, go ahead, bro.
Go ahead. I think somebody was speaking. Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, I was just saying, what I follow Liberian institutional system or political system all the way from is that you can't hear me?
Okay.
We can hear you.
We can
hear you.
Okay. So I've been saying that from back in the days. Well, there are some times in the middle where we're building institutions. But since the Civil War, up to the coming of the Taylor government and we stopped building institutions. What we've been building is this little bit of communities or thing that would just generate money for ourselves to put in our pocket. Like Benedict said right now, why is it I was told that during the latter days of Elkenah government, every taxes was paid into like a centralized repository. Mm-hmm. Everyone, so if you went to pay for your passport or what have you, and you pay the money. That was a revenue being generated by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs through the issuance of passport, and that went to a specific account. It was controlled. Now, I see that right after that government, these boys came in, everything becomes money being handled in the hand. Somebody paying to it directly. So if SOEs have an account that is monitored by the Ministry of Finance or the institution that is designed to do that, we will even know how much they have generated before they can even get to us with that report.
Exactly.
Somebody tells me that Huawei was in the business of collecting money weekly, carrying $50,000 cash in the bag to the president. I don't know how true that is, but that's what I heard. My cousin worked at the airport, one of the managers. They wanted him to be the manager. He refused. He said, because I'm not able to collect taxes from here and put it in the bag and take it to the mansion to give to that boy, I would never do it. So you have people that have mind. You have some of us that just want to see something for ourselves today. And for all of us, for the benefit of all of us, this is killing us. This has killed Liberia for 176 years. And if we can change that, we build institutions, we'll all be able to live happily in that country because there are enough resources to go around to make all of us happy and healthy. But we stop to do that. We want the immediate one. Somebody come to bring $1 million investment. Then we say, what in it for me? You want upfront payment before you can invest $1 million. That's just purely wrong. Water and sewer, I remember before the war, they were supplying water as far as Kakata. Water was in the houses in Kakata. Many of us that live here in foreign countries or in developed countries, when you travel to those cities, what do you see? You see water towers in each of those big towns when you're approaching it, with a town name on that water tower.
Yep.
The local institutions, they supply water to their places. By the time you get to Yorkville, you will see Yorkville name on that big tower is where the water is coming from that they supply that city with. But those things are there. They're on the book. So we need people with a mind. Now, I want to challenge the incoming administration. JMB, with a short time, I knew him when he served at LPMC. If any of you may recall, we moved LPMC office to Nyemah. During those days, Liberia was selling produce to other African countries. We sold, pancana, cocoa, coffee. We were exporting those products. I usually call him one of the Toba boys. When Toba was focused on agriculture, JMB then were the boys that were moving that. From agriculture up to LPMC, it was so good. I hope he still have some of the vitalities. Now, as president, I don't expect him to go like, he's the general overseer. Get few technicians around you that you want to see what is happening at LEC and lay out the plan. We can move all these guys to put on the payroll. Don't worry about moving them. I take 2 people, the managing director, the deputy managing director, maybe 3 if I want to put administration. 3 people. Those are all I will appoint. And give them the responsibility to restructure the place.
Yeah.
That's simple. But if I'm the president, I appoint the minister of finance, the deputy minister of finance, and all the, including the security guy, I appoint them. Who is going to report to who? So to get a stronger institutional base, we should have 1 or 2 people in the ministry that will really hold accountable to make sure that what we want is being done properly. Because these things are lacking. Until we come, we need to build a bureaucracy. In these countries we live in, many of you know, if the president should die today, everyone will still get their salary. The system will still be running. But try that in Liberia. Everything collapsed. So we have to build an institution. So all of these SOEs are not producing. They are producing. But they're producing because individuals are taking it and putting it in their own pocket. Because everything we're talking about, they're all essential. I said 2 things keeping us here, besides other healthcare. Electricity, constant water supply in the Western world is what differentiates us or them from us. Because what it brings development. You know, it promotes all social systems. When you lack of that, then you are struggling. And that's what we have in Liberia. And the system is there. Like Benedict said right now, if the president really mean business to change things, and you have technicians that will come up with these kind of reports, make sure they are reinforced to make sure that it's done properly. If a ministry is supposed to have 10 employees, let that ministry have 10 employees and not 20 employees. And we can build that. It's not difficult. We can build it with resiliency. And the rest of the people will be reemployed or redeployed to other sectors that will be really needed. And that can work. So it's because we have not focused on institutional building. That's why we are struggling to where we are.
Thank you. Thank you for that input, Mr. Hinnah. We've been discussing state-owned enterprises and looking at the problems and what have you. I'm sorry we kind of cut Gabriel short before coming in, but I think this would be a good time for him to come in and talk about how can we support sustained development through private sector and through donor funding. How do we attract funding to promote private sector development, our economic growth? So Gabriel, you can come in.
Yeah, again, thank you guys for inviting me here. I think this is probably my second or third time on the your platform. Every time I come in, I usually have a great discussion. For me, I think as I was listening to all of you, there is, all of you have touched on some of the things I want to talk about, at least as it relates to the private sector. I think I heard some of you talk about, there's these state-owned enterprises are bloated, right? That means you need to streamline them, cut the staff and put them somewhere else. But you cannot cut them from the state-owned enterprises and then bring them to another state-owned enterprises, right? You need to get them out of the state-owned enterprises and put them in the private sector, right? The biggest question is what do we currently have a private sector? I think that's the question we need to have. How big of a private sector do we have? If we do have a private sector, it's not big, right? The next question becomes, how do you build that private sector? How do you scale it, right? So instead of having all of these state-owned enterprises that are hiring everybody, and because they can't find anywhere else to get hired, create a private sector that will absorb them. But the question becomes, how do you build that? And for me, I would like to say, I'm a bit biased because I work in the financial sector. So I believe probably the private sector and the financial sector is the most sustainable vehicle you can use to build a country. Yes, I would agree that the government needs to cooperate as well. They need to create that environment and they need to work in tangent, right, to build that. But I believe if you can develop your private sector, it would take most of the burden that the government currently has and put it on the private sector. And as the private sector continue to develop, it can practically run the country. I think as Mr. Francis Hinnah said, without the government even having to do anything. That means even if the president goes today, the private sector is still functioning, everything is still running, you're still collecting your taxes because the private sector, you have what we call institution, the infrastructure that are building, that are continuing to pay taxes here. I will say this quickly and then I will pivot to the other side. I think Mr. Hinnah talked about that as well. So we have where we live right now, in America, we have system. Even if you pay off your house, you still pay taxes on that. I don't care how much you pay it off, you still pay taxes, right? Your vehicle, you still pay excise taxes, depending on what state you live in. You still pay all these. So that's what we call like a oil, it's like an engine that never stops running. These taxes continue, right? And the government has a way to collect that, right? Now, in order for that to happen, those of us that are here now, you and I and everybody here, we need jobs to continue to be paying our property taxes, our SI taxes, and everything else. And this is why the private sector is more important, because the government cannot sustain that. So for me, as I said earlier, the banking institution or the private, what we call private capital, or the foreign direct institutions, right, are the most effective way to grow productivity. We don't have productivity in Liberia in the private sector. We just have it right in the government. And if you go outside of the government, you don't have that. So how do we build productivity? You build productivity by strengthening your financial sector. And how do you strengthen your financial sector? We operate on what we call, and that's why I think the last time I was here, I was arguing with a gentleman that you can literally, when I tell people that you can literally print money in your country, people argue with me. But I will say this quickly. We operate on what's called fractional banking system, right? The fractional banking system right now, I think the Central Bank of Liberia just met in October. They kept the monetary policy as it is. That means the reserve ratio is 10% in US dollar. If it's in US dollars, if it's in Liberian dollars, it's 25%. So that means every US dollar that you put in the bank, you deposit in the bank, these banks have that ability to make loan on 90 cents. That means the banks is only required to keep 10 cents. If you deposit $1, if it's in US dollars, they're required to make loans on 90 cents and keep only 10 cents. If it's in Liberian dollars, I think it's 25 cents. They're only allowed to keep that. Here is how you create productivity, and here is how you expand your private sector. So, perfect example, Mr. Cyrus, he has a business. Let's say he's one of the top corporate lawyers in Central Monrovia. He represents some of these big companies that go in Liberia doing business with the government, and he has made his name for himself. But he's in Central Monrovia, right? He's well known. He's in Central Monrovia. All his clients come to Central Monrovia, right? Now, but most of them are not located in Central Monrovia. So Sarah, as a smart business lawyer, he said, you know what? Being located in Central Monrovia alone is inconvenient to some of my clients. So what I'm going to do, I want to open an office in, let's say, Margibi, right? So that way I have two locations. Now, you have, let's say, perfect example, Mr. Gray has his office in Central Monrovia that he owns, right? He own that property outright, right? Or he even have, let's say, 200, 300K thousand in a bank, US dollars. He said, I want to open a new office. Here is how you print money. And here's what I usually tell people. Mr. Cyrus now say, I want to open an office in Margibi County. He goes to the bank. He pitches his idea, say, here, I have this business. He just say, even the bank that you bank with, you go to them, say, hey, I'm one of the top 10, probably the best corporate lawyer in this country. I have an office here in Central Monrovia, right? I want to open another one. The bank say, okay, perfect. You found the office. Cyrus say, I want $1.5 million to one, buy the building for, let's say, 500,000 and have that other 1 million in what we call a line of credit. The bank said, okay, we're going to take the office that you have in Central Monrovia as a collateral. In addition to that, we'll also put maybe a hold on that 300,000 that you have as a collateral. Perfect. He agrees. They give him that contract to sign that $1.5 million. Now, $1.5 million that he created, that he had, that he just signed, Cyrus signed it as an agreement. That was money that was never available anywhere in the economy. He just created that. By just signing that contract, right? The bank, let's say, even if they give it to him for 10%, that bank gave the money to Cyrus for 10%. The bank goes to the central bank and borrow that same amount, 1.5, for 5%. So what they're making another 5%, right? Because Cyrus he now has two offices. He cannot be in both at the same time. He hires maybe 2 or 3 other lawyers in the Kakata office, right? He hires 2, maybe 3 lawyers, 2 assistants to help those lawyers. So he now splits his time between those 2. What just happened? He just created 3, maybe 5 jobs that never existed, right? In addition to that, he just expanded his law practice in the country to now make it more convenient to his clientele, right? The bank on the other side just has a $1.5 million note to Cyrus. They made 5% spread on it, right? what do you think they're going to do next? They're going to start looking for people like Cyrus. Now, multiply that with different lawyers around the country. You can take that the same ideas to construction workers, retail shops, people in the real estate industry, people doing government contracts. You can take your government contract and use that government contract as a collateral to borrow, right? So when I said there is the ability that is there, what I just explained to you is how you expand your economy, right? Now, people, I will say this quickly and I'll land. So maybe you guys have questions. There are a lot of questions. People will say, you know what? Uh, create the banks. Some banks are not taking risk on people like that. Maybe Cyrus might be an exception. He has a collateral to do that. This is where the institution come in. What I said earlier, we need the government to do its parts, right? In the West here, we have what's called the Uniform Collateral Code, right? That means the collateral that Cyrus pledged, which is his house and the 300,000, the banks will put a lien on it, right? Because they gave him 1.5 million, probably the biggest lien holder. They will be the first lien holder on that money and on that property. Now, if you have a Uniform Collateral Code, Cyrus cannot take that house and now go to another bank and go borrow. Because if he does, any bank he goes to go borrow or any financial institution, they will go through that system, right? And they will say, hey, Cyrus, you already pledged this loan to FDIC Bank. So they are first position on that link. Maybe you only have maybe another 300 or maybe 100 grand or 50 grand to play with. So we can't even give you that money. So that accountability, those systems, helps strengthen your financial system in the country. It allowed the banks to have, what we call to mitigate risk, right? If the more they can mitigate risk, they can assess their risk, the more they will be able to take risk on other people, right? What's the other thing that I want to talk about? The recapitalization of our banks. We don't have that currently. Niger, this is not unique to Liberia. This is a bigger conversation being held around the African continent, right? So when I say we have that ability to create an economy that is able to absorb all of those people, not just all of those people that are, bloated in the government, right? But also all of these graduates that we put in out every year. Every year, thousands of people will graduate. No jobs for these people, right? Some of those kids are innovative, right? But these ideas, there's no financial institution, not even the banking, but also private capital to be able to fund them, right? And these are some of the challenges that we have. I have other ideas in terms of how to create, that system and also make it, that it can become available to everybody in a country. But hopefully we can talk about that later on. So I will stop on that for now.
Okay. Those were some very beautiful ideas. I am not a financial expert. That's why I stick to the issue of governance and law and rule of law. But I think you mentioned something about uh, uh, asset database. And I think sometimes back in 2017, 2018, there were efforts to create that asset registry so that it provides a reference of ease for financial institutions who are dealing with loan in Liberia. I don't know how far that went, but I think that's a great idea that provides more incentive for financial institutions to give loan out to small businesses, and provide depend on government position as it is right now in Liberia, uh, a small country, small economy, but government remains the biggest employer. Because employment and earning have not been drifted away from public office. We actually need to have a viable private sector that, like all of you have said, we run the economy and not relying on the government to do so. And that brings to me also brings a governance issue. How do we organize the country in terms of good governance? Looking at very small things, do we export most of these public utilities? Do we export them, or source them out to private entity? I think if you do that, it will be more useful, and they might be able to generate the kind of income we're talking about, so they're not manipulated by government or public officials. Another thing is that we have not placed our population in the habit and lifestyle and culture of paying taxes and being responsible to our government. We don't pay taxes. We find every means, to avoid paying taxes. It's a cultural thing that we need to rehabilitate our population. For people to pay taxes to LRA, it's a difficult thing. You got people in there who have the tax ID and everything, but the government has to enforce it. You got to run behind them to do that, because all of these things have to jive. We don't have the system. If you outsource public utilities to a private company right now, for the first 2 years, that company is going to suffer. They're going to incur losses because they got to set up systems and structures to be able to deliver those services that the country just doesn't have. How do we outsource water to other companies when we don't even have the water and sewage pipe all over the place? What other system do we have? Are we going, we need to look at all of these things. And these suggestions in my mind are not suggestions that are coming up for a quick fix. They require a thoughtful, a methodical process that will go over a period of time. But we need to start doing it now. And hopefully the government, the incoming government, will begin to look at people, professional people, who may not necessarily be supporter of Unity Party, will not be friend of the vice president or the president of Liberia, but will be people who have the expertise to provide, opportunities to explore these possibilities. So we need to look more professionally. We need to adapt the merit system to see who is able to deliver certain things, and then we need to talk about the whole idea of professionalism, of accountability, of integrity, because that's the only way you can have a system, a governance system that can deliver. People have to be responsible. They have to be professional to provide these services. Like Gabriel, you mentioned some beautiful ideas. I don't think we have systems in Liberia that are lacking on some of this information. They do, but maybe they're not just given the opportunity to bring these ideas forth, to implement them. And also, I'm not a financial expert, but I think once we get our governance system right, we can respect those who we put in power, and we know that they have the skill set, and we give them the power to go ahead and do. Because one of the things that has confronted us also is the willpower. The willpower, and that runs throughout the government, from the executive branch all the way to the judicial branch. People always come with interventions. They intercede. We need to give institutions the authority to do what it's supposed to do, have a plan, and let's pursue those plans. So I think there are a lot of progress we can make. Mr. Hinnah's talking about there was time before where you have water in different areas. Can we go back to those places where we have Takata producing its own water and seawater does not have to go throughout the country, but you create opportunities for people to get jobs in the different counties so that everybody will not choose to Monrovia and provide that cluster. But you got industry, you got active economic solutions happening in Ganta, in Buchanan, and other places. It's about time that we spread it out. And I think all of these suggestions coming from all of you gentlemen can be used. I really don't want to dwell on what has been happening. But for me, what I'm looking at is what do we do now to correct all of these things and I see some of the suggestions coming out from Mr. Hinnah, from you, Gabriel, from Benedict, and so forth. Michael has been kind of quiet in this discussion. I don't. There's whole difference. There's a whole perspective I want to bring in, but I think I want to let Michael come in and maybe Alphonso to come in and bring that perspective, and then we can make progress.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you guys can hear me. My connection has been very bad. That's why I've been a little quiet, because I'm hearing people, but it's going in and out, so I can't follow that. Makes sense to Liberia building the private sector, because I've been over the years I've been involved in some of that work with the organizations that are in the private sector, which would be the Liberian Chamber of Commerce and the Liberian Business Association. The problem,
I think Michael is
Michael seems to be going in and out.
You're breaking in. We're not hearing you, so I think we probably need to stop.
So I just want to comment a little bit and just throw light on a couple of things, if
come back in.
permit me. Hello.
Okay.
Yeah, my thing is, I know I heard Councilor Verdier mentioning that, but we don't pay taxes, and for me, I think that the tax policy needs to be looked at, and actually tax administration too, because I think Liberia has the capacity to collect tax revenue, but I think the same thing I say about public corporation management of this institution is key to mobilizing the tax revenue that is desired of the government that will be able to implement programs of the government. I just wanted to say that. And another thing, and when I would say that when it comes to the water corporation right now, the African Development Bank built a very good system in Kakata. The USAID built a very good system in San called Banjama and Kipma. All you need is just management. All you need is just management to be able to $25 million the USAID government invested in the water supply system in 3 counties. Build it up, modernize it, and other things to be able to generate the necessary revenue for the water and sewer corporation. All you need is management right now. If you don't have the proper management, this institution is just going to fail. The next thing, how do you build the private sector? The government coming in right now is a new government. And if you look at the last 6 years, there's no new foreign investment coming into the country. And the government has to focus on bringing direct foreign investment from other countries to see how best we can build and expand the private sector in mining, in oil, in fishery, other places. Because what I know about the public financial law or the government law is that for every investment institution or every corporation that comes into the country to invest, 25%, I think 25 or 35% of whatsoever investment they're trying to undertake should be given to the Liberian institution. And if the government can focus on, if the new government coming can focus on bringing new direct investment into the country, I think we can start to see the private sector expanding a little bit, and where everybody rely on central government to go in and work. You'll see some people, and I mean, private institutions salary sometimes is attractive. And when the international corporation come in, you'll see people in government will say, I think I better go to the private sector and see how best I can work there. But in the long run, I think if the new government coming can focus on bringing foreign investment into the country, when it comes to road, when it comes to electricity, road network. Most country depends on road network as an investment because it's sustainable by itself. The last time I was in Liberia, I drove from Liberia straight to Sierra Leone, and when I saw the road, they have a toll road. Right now, when moving from Liberia to Sierra Leone, they have a toll road. And that toll that is to sustain the road by itself and create employment for other people and see how best, and expand the private sector of Sierra Leone. So at this thing, the government focus right now, build a good financial system. You should start trying to attract some investor into the country, because for the past 6 years, there's no foreign investment coming into the country that we know of, that I know of. And, I know there's some contracts signed here and there. I know I reviewed some contracts that I think it was not a good investment for the country or for the public corporation. But the government has to focus on bringing some good, tangible investment into the country to be able to expand the private sector.
Okay.
Well, I probably wanted to add to that though. I think part of the things that I noticed right in my compound here, right, you got one of the houses here, two of the houses. The one is owned by an Indian guy who has a couple of building material stores. And then the other house, you got about 7 Indian guys in there. I mean, I can see that they got a shoe rack right outside the porch there are a lot of things to do, and that suggests to me they're really poor where they come from. But these are the guys he brings here to man the stores that he has. I don't know whether there are laws to avoid that. I can see how, from a cost perspective, it's cheaper for an Indian guy to bring 7 or 8 Indian guys from India, fly them here, $2,000+, house them, feed them, and then pay them. Whether that is more preferable than hiring Liberians to work in these stores. And I understand that phenomenon is common for a lot of Indian business here, the liquor producer and other people. They bring their own people. Even ArcelorMittal, there are some contracts that they award to Indian companies. The Indian companies bring their people. I think we should laser in on that as a government and ensure that those areas of work that are reserved for Liberians, that Liberians should do the work. On the other hand, there are things that are happening inside the government that create excessive costs. For example, and I like to be specific because I'm saying this so that people can listen and change it. The government, the Liberian Revenue Authority, the Customs Authority, anywhere has a responsibility to assess imports and exports and levy taxes. Mm-hmm. In our case in Liberia, that responsibility has been given to a Dubai company called Midtech Scientific. So, and then the customers, importers and exporters are required to pay that company $190 on every shipment that is processed. So if, for example, we're using APM terminal numbers, 180,000 containers came into the country 2020. On the estimate, this company just made probably $30 million out of charges of $190. Charge for a service that the Ministry of Finance, the LRA, should be doing. It's like I go to the train station to go and buy a train ticket. I ask the guy, I say, look, I'm trying to go to Chicago from Houston. He said, go to the window there and ask for the price of the ticket. When I get to the window to ask for the price, they say, okay, to give you the price of the ticket, you got to pay $20. Yeah, I paid $20, and they say the ticket is $50. Go over there and pay. That's exactly what is being done. I think the government revenue may not even be capturing that money. It probably are slush funds for some people. There are many such instances of that. Now, my thing is, if the ministry or the LRA is incapable of doing that job, then maybe they should outsource it to a Liberian company and allow the government to provide a budget to support that company so that kind of revenue remains in the country. These are some of the things that and in many instances that we are missing in on, and we are just keeping ourselves poor by our own design.
Yeah.
You see, some government institutions are created by statute, and they have definite mandate to execute certain things. If any government institution with those stated mandate under the law, executive law, and what have you, is unable to execute those mandate, then there's something wrong. Then you got to establish that so that government looks at that mandate again. When you want to outsource your mandate, there's something instead of operation is different, but your core mandate to collect taxes. If you want to outsource that, then there is something wrong with the institution. In my thinking, I think it's just malicious. That's the way public officials try to absorb themselves from direct access to funding, but they use other channels so that they can get public revenues coming to them. Yeah, these institutions have the money to do so, and what you do is to hold the public institution accountable. If they're not doing what they're supposed to do, then you have a way of making them accountable. Investigate them. If there's people sign contracts, they outsource different services because of corruption. So you need to have a system where you can investigate the people who are not performing based on their mandate, their official mandate. Now, if a public institution is going outside its regular conventional mandate to do other things because they want to provide services, that's a good thing to look at support. But there are core mandate of all the different government agencies. And those people who are, that is why you have those people on the payroll, they employed by government to provide the services. Why would you impute additional costs to Liberian citizens in terms who involved in import by bringing in a middleman who would just do the same thing that the government is supposed to do? It just doesn't make no sense. It's the same thing we're just about investigating a company in 2018 that they hired from Sierra Leone. And we got to know that I think it was this former Sierra Leone footballer who listed, and the Liberian government were going to collaborate with him to levy taxes on import and all that kind of thing to generate extra revenue. And that's why I call this kind of contract malicious. You should not
that
do
is, but Verdier, just for your information, that contract exists. The company has still been making that money, that illegitimate money. So it's not like they attempted it. That's what they've been doing. $250 on every importation.
Yeah. So
yeah,
you see,
they said they're giving you what they call cargo tracking note, which
exactly.
is like they're tracking your cargo when you already, that service is provided to you by the shipping line already.
So and this is probably again counterintuitive to this whole notion that we want to build a private sector. If the government is making such contracts, what make you think any reasonable investors who want to come in and do legitimate business will want to come there? Because they know when they come there, some of those things will not be on the books, right? They will be off books and off balance sheets to the government transaction. And I think that's probably some of the biggest hindrances of us wanting to have private investors come into that country. Now, there are opportunities there. I think Mr. Foley mentioned that, where if a company goes into Liberia, 25% is supposed to go to the Liberian people, right? The other 75% is retained by that company, right? If I'm coming there and to do such transaction, I'm okay with that kind of percentage split, right? But if there is these government officials who are, cutting transaction, doing deals like that, it kind of hinders us from attracting foreign direct investment, And I believe in order for us to really grow, in addition to what I said in terms of the banking sector, we need foreign direct investment. And what I usually tell Liberians is that we're not the only competitors in our region anymore. We don't offer. There's Ghana, there's the Sierra Leone, there's other countries that are competing for the same dollar that we're competing for. So if we don't get our acts together, where we have off books, off balance sheets, transaction, or in things that are not even benefiting to the Liberian people, the people want to go somewhere where they can do legitimate businesses, right? And there are other countries around it in the region that are begging for the same dollars, right? So we have to, I think it was Mr. Verdier that said that we have to look at ourselves in terms of, really holding ourselves accountable from the government entity side, right? And that accountability from the government side would translate to the favorability that these investors will see in the private sectors and say, okay, this is a country that is, up to something that is, competing fairly. And these are the kind of country they want to go invest in. So in as much that I think we can attract foreign direct investment in Liberia, the basic necessity, like the rule of law, the accountability, if people holding people accountable, if they're not there, we will continue to keep missing out. And these fraudulent transactions where people do off books and we sit here and complain about will continue to be taking place, while everybody else, you and I on here and everybody else, most people will be okay. But that, the blunt of that burden will be borne by the average Liberian in the country.
But I just wanted to add, I said, the reason why I spend hours here when Cyrus invited me to sit here, because I know some of us haven't seen each other before. We work in very different sectors, but it fills my heart when I sit with you guys and I try to explain. I say, this is why I'm holding all of us here, our feet to the fire. Some of you have worked in past institutions. Some of you might be going the current one. We need to be able to implement this kind of a transition that we're talking about, because what I see happening, the mention of our shipping line or whatever is just somebody who has power in government that created such a thing. All of you remember the BVA system? When you wanted to export in Liberia, you come here, you pay a lot of money to get the BVA thing arranged, you put it on it, and they send it back to you. You go to Liberia, again, you can't even clear the stuff from the port. Then you got this, how they call it? The guys, the contractors that clear your thing from the port. You got all kinds of loopholes into the system. Let's make the system transparent, open, and clear, that we all can thrive into the system. Because sometimes your own very good person, you want them to manage business in Liberia, you take them there, you get disappointed. When the UN was so prevalent in Monrovia at the time, I carried a group of guys from Britain to establish this resource center to help Liberians tailor their resume in the way the Western world will appreciate it, so that we'll get jobs to the low people. To get that paper signed, some of the very close people that I know that was supposed to make that paper happen, those boys spent over 1,800 British pounds and never got the paper. The paper never got the paper. They got frustrated and we had to leave. We got to get rid of that and make our country a conducive area where we can go and be able to thrive and do good business. We got friends, man. We made friends in areas that we work here. We got repetition. They're not allowing us to shine. When we sit there with people, I tell them the good deeds of Liberia. I start from the history. We're the oldest political independent country in Africa. When we got independent, it took 110 years before any other African country got independent. You know, you ever thought about that? 1847 in Liberia, 1957 Ghana. That's 110 years. And look at us. We're nowhere. Somebody say around World War II, we're growing, our economy was growing like 6%, even more than Japan. Where are we today? And the very simple, minute thing that we can do and we can change the system. A large number of our citizens in the country are spectators.
Yeah.
To the governance system. We need to include them because that's what happened in this country that I live in. When you include people, the system works better. All of those are high in government right now. They can be retrained in a short period of time and we can have an effective system running. How can I pay my senators $25,000 a month, my representatives $15,000 a month, and then the civil servants are like pushing all the paper are making less than $300 a month? How can I have an effective police force on the ground? The guy make $75 and it takes 3 months before he can get the $75, $92. So I went to Monrovia last year, April. Every policeman had a backpack on his bike. Did you notice that, Gabriel? Benedict?
Why is that?
They got a backpack on their bike and their hands just to the window. They don't even give a damn what you're doing. Whatever they can get and put it. So like go there with a uniform on you and get your feeding and come back. Can we transform these boys into better people? Yes. I participated in two. I saw it. 1979, we trained the police during the OU conference. If any of you were alive, you saw the police force we had that took care of the OU conference. Even when the coup took place, you saw what our boys were on the Harley Davidson. Their posture, you could see when you see the boys' dress code, you dare not get them 25 cents. You knew that. When things got tough, we came back to Monrovia. We had Brandon Samuka who put in the RRU, the Rapid Response Unit. That was so good. They put in the Black Beret. That was so good. But it just go up and then we'll break it down. Go up, we'll break it down. We need to build institutions and have them sustain. Because that's what's lacking. Every time you put Francis Hinnah, somewhere you sit there, and rather than looking at the means to justify the end, no, he go to the end, justify the means, and we spoil the whole thing. You know.
Let run, Councillor Verdier, since we have you, as you make that comment, just pivot to the issue of accountability and integrity of institutions.
That's exactly where I was going. I spoke about the governance issue and the way to restore confidence, not only to the people of Liberia, but also to international community, our donor partners and businesses, foreign businesses, giving them the assurances that our country and the economy is conducive to invest, is to make sure that people who are involved in the abuse of office and people are held accountable. We have anti-corruption law that provides that anybody who abuses an office that is entrusted to him, an office, not necessarily using misdirecting or investment. Investment is part of corruption. But one who misuses the office and authority that have been entrusted to him is an act of corruption. So all the things they got doing, soliciting bribe from business people before they can sign a document or before they can even go to school, those are all acts of corruption, and those are things we need to investigate and make sure people are prosecuted. Now, what I think I think this government needs to do. Look, the issue of corruption is a critical mass for Liberia's development. So we're not talking about totally eradicating it. That is an objective, can be a goal. That's something that will be achieved over a period of time. But right now, in terms of putting a stamp on it, this incoming government needs to have an approach where in the first 100 to 200 days, there will be some act, there will be some semblance of investigation, and there will be some semblance of prosecution of people who will. And for me, the way to do it is not to go and start investigating new cases. I am definitely sure that the current LACC has some cases that it has investigated already. Why don't we take those cases and make sure we can start prosecuting them, and then launch new investigations? There are things that are bothering Liberia right now. This whole issue about sanction and this person being placed on sanction and what have you. But hey, we already have people who were placed on sanction. What level of investigation has been conducted? None. So we need to take that first step, But first, getting to the Anti-Corruption Commission, what are those cases that you've investigated? What are the pieces of evidence you have? Can you take those cases and go to court? You amass some evidence. Are they credible to get prosecution? Let's put those cases on the docket and let the Liberian people know that something is being done to address this issue of impunity, of corruption in the first 200 days. Not necessarily having guilty. You see, the thing in the justice system, a successful prosecution is not necessarily a guilty verdict. What is a successful prosecution is that a judicial forum has been created and people who were charged or who were accused or who were suspected of committing crime were brought to justice. And in the court, that determination was made that they were not guilty. You understand? So it's not necessarily that they be guilty, but let it have a logical legal conclusion instead of things hanging over our head. So I think that's what the government needs to do. And I will say this, in as much that in 2003 to 2004, when I met with George Weah and Co in Florida, I told George Weah he was incompetent. I would never consider him for president of Liberia. He vindicated me. But guess what he did? In the last few days, the new anti-corruption law that they established, that law gave the LACC more power than the 2008 law. That law is even stronger than the 2008 law. That law gave LACC direct power to prosecute. That law gave LACC the mandate to investigate people and to prosecute people without going to the Ministry of Justice. I think the LACC needs to move with that. And here is it, the executive branch needs to give LACC that force so that they can execute that. It's an issue of willpower too, And I think that's a very important power and authority that has been granted in the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission. Now, whether they want to look at the commission in its entirety and see whether it comprises competent other people, that's another story. But what they need to do, I think, going forward in the next 200 days, we need to look at those cases that have been investigated. Because look, I left the Anti-Corruption Commission in 2019. In February, my term expired there. Since then, I always say I ask people to correct me. I have not heard of any successful prosecution since we left in 2019. I don't know what has been happening. Maybe they've been prosecuting people, but they're not publishing the story. So we need to know what's happening. That's another thing about corruption and about the justice system. If the institution responsible for this thing need to let the people know what progress they've made, because that alone can serve as a deterrent to other people. You need to send this message out that this government is not going to accept people who engage in acts of corruption and they sit in office and don't suffer the consequences. So I think that is very important. All of these things we discussed, there's an issue of governance. And underlying this issue of misgovernance is corruption, is abuse of office. It just runs through everything. When we talk about water and steel, we talk about reporting, we talk about LEC, everybody, we talk about banks and all of that. We talk about LBDR, an institution, LBDR with government having 50% in LBDR engaged in inside payment, up to now, nobody has been here responsible. And public resources. So this is a very critical matter for government. Stamping, putting its foot down on the issue of corruption. And sometimes it's not just a total success right away, it's just a perception that this government is prepared to. So the government needs to hit the ground running. Let's look at corruption. You can continue to investigate new cases, but hey, what are those cases that you investigated? What are the pieces of evidence? Now look, the U.S. government did something for us to give the Liberian government a head start by imposing sanctions on certain individuals, economic as well as human rights sanctions. And that is where I always have part of Liberian people. We celebrate too soon, and we rely on America to do everything for us. But the issue of sanctions is not functional, is not applicable, is not effective if the national government does not do something to act when sanctions have been imposed. If the national government doesn't do anything, whoever is placed on sanctions can just remain right in Liberia and still live and survive. A clear example is Nathaniel Magay and Bay. They got elected. The government never did any investigation to bring them to justice. It's not late. The government still needs to do that. There are laws on, when I was at LCC, we prosecuted Milton Teji, who was a sitting senator, prosecuted his successfully, he was found guilty. So then we asked the legislature, the Senate, not to expel him, and all of them sat there and refused to do it. But that's the law. If a senator is convicted of a crime, criminal conduct, he's supposed to be expelled from the Senate. They didn't have the guts to do that. So we have to hold our public officials responsible. The serving in public authority is not a must for any Liberian. It's a privilege. When you get that privilege, you're supposed to serve honorably. And we need to start holding them accountable. That's the only way we're going to move. We have to stem out this issue of corruption. We need to do something about it. And I think the incoming president, on numerous occasions, has mentioned his intention to make sure that he can go after people who are corrupt, people who are being accused of corruption. And I think he will start a good governance process. We give that picture out there, and people will have interest and will support the government. They will have this good perception if they adopt policies and actions to bring people to justice as quick as possible. Because we have so many cases in Liberia of corruption, so many cases. So it's just a matter of empowering the different institutions, the LCC and other integrity institutions to make sure they can do that.
Okay, Councillor Porter. Anybody wanted? We are getting close to the end of our program. So what I'm going to do, there are big things happening around the world today. So I pull up a 3-minute clip of a video on energy. Today we're going to talk about energy a little bit, but that guest didn't show up. In a way, we'll talk about LEC as a SOE, and we really hope to talk about the TRANSCO CLSG line that connects Guinea, Liberia, Ivory Coast, and Sierra Leone, and how it could be a game changer if used properly. So I will take a few minutes of your time, 3 or 4 minutes. We'll run this clip. It's a TED presentation by a guy called Rennie. He's a climate tech investor and clean energy advocate. And after that, then we'll give our parting statement. One of the things I want you guys to also think about this program is asking you to do. The primary purpose of moving Election Central was to deal with election issues, education, information about elections. The elections are over now, so we're getting into a new phase, looking at issues about Liberia generally. I'm giving you guys the opportunity to help us find a name that we can coin instead of Election Central that we'll use for the name of this program as we go forward until we get to the next election. So as you think about that, it doesn't have to be today. You can do it later on. We do that, but let me run this TED presentation. See if we can get it. There we go.
It's an honor to be with you here today. And the message I have to deliver is a simple one, which is that clean energy will win on cost definitively, but only if we get out of the way and allow it to be built. Let's focus on that first point. Let's look at the cost of clean energy technology. In 1975, if you were buying a solar panel per watt of power that it produced, it would cost you $100 US. By 2020, that cost had declined to 20 cents per watt of power. That's a 500-fold decline. This is unlike anything else ever seen in energy. It is unlike anything else ever seen in physical infrastructure, and it continues today, and it is likely to continue for decades to come. Now, this has surprised the leading experts on clean energy and even the biggest optimists on the future of clean energy. I should know because I am one of those leading optimists. In 2010, the International Energy Agency, the world's foremost and official experts on energy, forecast that the cost of solar power would drop like this. Now, I came from technology. I was a computer scientist, and so I looked at the cost of solar through the lens of Moore's law, exponential decline in cost as technology scales. And so I forecast that the cost of solar would drop at around 5 times the rate that the IEA believed it would. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I was wrong. The cost of solar actually dropped 10 times as fast as the IEA expected, and twice as fast as I expected. Clean energy is a technology. This deception in understanding the pace of cost decline has led to a massive underestimation of the pace of growth. Every year, the IEA puts out a forecast for how much new solar will we install per year. And you see these colored lines show you the pace at which the IEA believes new solar will be deployed annually versus the black line, which shows how fast it's actually been deployed. So you see the colored lines going off to the right. Those are successive years of forecasts of annual installations. And on the left, you have what amounts to a 30 to 40% annual growth in installations. Note this has happened through the COVID years. Note that 2022 will see another 38 to 40% growth in this market. This trend is not limited to just solar. It applies to a wide variety of clean energy technologies. We've seen the price of solar drop by a factor of 40 over the last few decades. We've seen the cost of wind drop almost as much, and now an accelerating cost decline in floating offshore wind and offshore wind. We've seen the cost of batteries that power our electric vehicles and grid energy storage drop at the same pace or faster than the pace of solar. And we are just at the very beginning of an exponential cost decline in the cost of using clean electricity to make hydrogen and other fuels that we can use to power industry, to provide weeks or months of storage on the grid, and to provide fuels we can use for aviation, for shipping, and so on. What's happening here, and I won't claim this is happening quickly enough to stay below 1.5 degrees Celsius, but what's happening here is that clean energy technologies are technologies, and they drop in cost like technology. As they are scaled, they come down in price. Meanwhile, fossil fuels are commodities, and fossil fuel prices fluctuate over time. This is data from Oxford's Institute of New Economic Studies, which shows the cost of oil, gas, and coal across the bottom there, fluctuating over time, largely remaining flat, whereas here is the cost of clean energy technologies, solar, wind, batteries, power to fuels, all of them dropping exponentially.
Wow, and guess what? The sun shines here in Liberia and Africa all the time.
Beautiful. Yep.
Okay,
You're
so
right,
hey, let me get your parting comments, and then we'll call today's show. It's been a great interchange. I'm happy you all have shown up. I enjoyed it, but I gave you the opportunity to give us your closing parting statements.
I guess I can go since I was the last. Again, I want to say thank you guys for having me on here. I think this was a great discussion as always. Um, there was multifaceted as we discussion as we look at Liberia, but and I'm not trying to take away from any of the discussion. I just wanted to hone in on pretty much what I was saying is that you know in as much that we have these you know discussions and suggestions, if you want to call it that, if we just remain in the back end, just talking about these and ideas and putting these ideas without, mustering the strength or the courage to actually effect some level of change in our country, we will continue to talk about these. So I guess my plea to all of you is that whatever area your expertise in, be it finance, public finance, law, or whatever it might be, I would say find your niche, find your where you can fit in, however way you can contribute to building Liberia. I think that's what every nation does. Everybody who build the regional peers that we look at, what are the Ghana and the Ivory Coast, these are individual who solve problems and also muster the strength and the ideas, put the ideas out there, and then we're able to do certain things in those countries. So I'm urging all of you that whether you collaborate or you do that individually, you have to, or we have to, do something in Liberia, because as Mr. Francis said, we had 100-year head start, before any other country, over 100-year head start. So technically, if you're looking at the progression of things, we're supposed to be the model for democracy, the model for economic growth, the model for anything you talk about on the continent. So I don't know where we dropped the ball, or maybe we can blame everything on the war that just happened, but we have to find our footing again. And without even going too further into what I talked about earlier, again, as I said, please, whatever you do, collaborate. If you know somebody who's in the same field with you, who's, passionate about what you do, collaborate and find a niche in Liberia, see what you can do, and, and try to effect change on that. And maybe, hopefully, we will have an administration that is favorable in terms of fighting corruption to be able to create that environment where each and every one of us doing what we're doing can thrive in our country and make it, at least competitive on a regional level. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel. Thanks for coming.
Okay, I go. Hello? Yeah, I just, Councilor Verdier said something about fighting corruption, and that the Boakai administration would try to do something about it. But I say, for me personally, his first appointment in government, especially Justice Ministry, LACC, and the other fiduciary institution, would tell us as to the direction of the government, if they're going to go after some of the cases, or if they're going to be the same old wine in your bottle or something. So I would say this, and for me, my closing is, look, if you look across government now, the big thing that hampering our government system, our governance system, is management. We have to focus on bringing in the right people to this institution that will make decisions in the interest of the Liberian people and the country. And if we don't do that, if the new government come in and just recycle people and then put it into places, then it's the same old thing. Look, we're gonna be at the end of the day, it's going to be very difficult to see that kind of transition that people aspire for, and the kind of transition that people are looking for. The people expectations are very, very high right now. So with the new government coming, they have to make sure that they put into perspective the right management team that will be able to manage this institution and change the lives of the Liberian people. And as Gabriel said, look, I would like to collaborate with anybody, and when it comes to finance and management. But I think my own thinking is, look, the right people for the right institution should be nominated to be able to have the country moving forward. So I will stop there.
Thank you, Ben. Couldn't agree with you more.
Thank you, Ben. I just want to say, first of all, thank you to Cyrus for always hosting us and brightening our mind when it comes to these discussions. As I mentioned as I mentioned earlier when I was speaking, I said there's two things we're doing in Liberia. We've made the citizens, a large population of the citizens, to be spectators rather than participants. We need to have our citizens involved into what we're doing. And by that, I mean, what is our local government structure? Because if I was sitting in Liberia or in Mr. Boakai's, Ambassador Boakai's seat right now, I can get a list of all those people that have been put on payroll, and I can filter it and see which one works and which one doesn't work. And those that work, I can place them to places where the country really need them to work, and they will work there. We have this attitude in Liberia of wanting to get paid and don't work. Many of you we live here. By the time you make me director, rather than going to work and put my schedule to go from A to B, I'm a boss now. I'm not working. So we need to establish a system that will allow people to work. And how do we do that? Is getting the ordinary citizens that participate, that the taxpayers will get involved. The reason why Western governments are sustained is because of the local government system. I live in a city in Canada. It's called London. It's in the province of Ontario. I don't go to Queen's Park, which is the provincial headquarters of the premier, the one you call superintendent in Liberia. I don't go there to ask the superintendent to come clean the garbage from our city. The mayor that we elect here is the mayor with institutions. They got schedules when they will pick up our garbage. They got schedules when they will clean our snow when they come on the road, and that works. And we pay, someone said we pay our property tax. Even if I pay my house off today, I still owe property tax. I will continue to pay until I leave or until I die. If my children take over, they'll continue to pay. Those systems are easy. Those are the low-hanging fruits that we can implement. I read in the Liberian Constitution, 1986 Constitution, Article 56B, it said there shall be an election of paramount chief, clan chiefs by a register of voters. So what do? When you elect the clan chiefs, the paramount chief, what do? Now, I want to say to them, what you have here now, I'm from the district in Liberia called Former District in Bon County. In that district, we got 5 clans. We elect 5 clan chiefs and a paramount chief. If you look at that model, it's almost like electing the mayor for any of the cities that we live in. You elect the mayor and you elect the ward councillors in the mayor. So in my head, I would say the clan chiefs are the ward councillors and the paramount chief is the mayor because he gets voted by the entire district. The clan chiefs get voted by each of their clans. What if we put those people together? They are now the elected officials. And by the way, I might tell you, I'm working in local government. Those councillors are elected in local government. They are the farmers. Those guys who have their farms, they're raising cows, they got their tractors, they are elected as the councillors. So we are hired as staff and manage all corporate records. So we sit there and put together the report that this was supposed to be done. We explain to them and they vote upon it. Can we do that in Liberia? Absolutely, yes, we can do that. And I gave you this, the newly elected representative of Former just sent me some papers to look at. The bond money company is now run by the China Union. China Union, from the time they signed the contract, long before Ellen Johnson, until now, they paid $40 million and signed the contract. I'll read the contract. The contract in it has $3.5 million annually for community development. And China Union has been paying that $3.5 million over the past 6 years under President Weah government. But that money was going to Samuel Toy's personal account. Now the brass copper has gone to the people of Former District. He sent me those records. I wanted to fly to Monterey. What are you going to do? The boy will just pull you somewhere. No, but what I'm saying is there are enough resources. When I talked to Prince Johnson, he made the same kind of allegation about what happening with Asala Mental. You know where Asala Mental bring the iron ore? Right behind my door here. Right here in Hamilton. It's where they bring the iron ore from Elkenah. We know things. For me, I want to see Liberia, I want to see the institution built where whether I'm minister, whether I'm director, whether I'm an ordinary person, light can shine in my house, water can run in my house. If we have that mindset, we can rebuild this country for us to live together in harmony with each other. You will live there until you retire and you enjoy your life to go. But I always say to you, I told Cyrus, every public institution that was built in Liberia from the time I've been born to now, I see them. I don't care how fragile they are, but they are still standing. Prove me wrong. Cabral Estate is still there today. There was a public housing we built. Even though the people that were in it have paid for it for themselves now, but it stayed there. Cabral Estate, Stephen Tower Estate, Bannerville Estate, right? Matari Estate. Those estates are there because they were built as public institutions. Where are the houses of Samuel Doe? Where are the houses of William R. Tolba? Where are the houses of Brother William V. Tubman? When you squander money, even my friend Initial Clay, where are the houses they built? They're all broken down. Let us focus on building institutions, national institutions that can be sustained and that will live after we've gone. That's what we should focus on doing. And that is involving all of our people in the local sector, and they'll be able to do it. Every district should be able to supply their own water, their own light, their own healthcare, and it's possible they can do it. We have learned here. We know what to be done. Let the president give us the mandate to do it. Because when President Sally was president, I heard and I read about it. The first trip she made out, she came back and returned the balance of her trip, changed to the Ministry of Finance. Every other minister that went after that did the same thing. When she went the second trip, she did not return it. All other ministers that went did not return anything. If you didn't return it, you should have made a report. Reporting system is important to our system, and transparency is very important. We should work on doing that to build a credible society, and people will respect us. Thank you. Thank you, Cyrus, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Francis. Thank you for always coming. Who's going to take it next? Marco? Marco doesn't seem to hear us. Okay, Councilor Verdier, can you hear me?
I would just go in.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Marco.
Can hear you. Marco is in Liberia?
Marco is in Minnesota.
Oh, what kind of poll system is that?
Yeah, bad day for me.
In Minnesota.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. We can hear you.
Yeah, for the discussion I've been following, as best we talk institutions. I think the first time I came to institution was something we mentioned. This is why I think our people are corrupt. The people that are in offices, they don't feel protected, and because of that, they must get what they can get while they can get it. So there's a lot that comes into building Liberia. We need to start holding ourselves accountable. And I think one of the panelists for having a centralized reporting platform budget and track your budget in the same place. The top, the ministers, the agency heads, the president, recognize the importance. The only way he will move forward is if he's appointing people in office directions. Because if he's not appointing those, no matter what happens, even the layman on the ground, if that person wants to do something the right way, they're going to be discouraged. Because I think a few shows ago, the people that Boakai appointed in Liberia,
I think we should just retire Michael. The system is not allowing.
Yeah.
You know,
I thought you were in Liberia, actually.
We hear you, Michael. I think it's true anyway. And the last thing he said was that he will hope that the new administration will appoint people based on their core competence and ability to work and lead in the areas that they have been assigned. I think that's what he said. Okay, Councilor Verdier.
I'll just take this time to express my gratitude to all of you panelists, as well as to Cyrus for the different inputs, you know, and the professional suggestions that you all provided to aid this discussion. There are a lot of things to do, and there are a lot of places that we need to go that we're not going to exhaust it from this discussion, you know, and I think Mr. Hinnah made a lot of good points about local government. You know, when you empower the local community to take responsibility of their own development, it actually leads to development. You know, so there's whole issue of decentralization has been talked about. There's a whole program that was worked on under the early administration. It's just that we just did not experience this whole concept of continuity of government under the Weah administration. You know, that just a lot of things that this administration, current administration, inherited, and they did not continue. They didn't sustain. You know, instead, what it did was to start breaking down institutions. There were a lot of money and time and resources that the government of Liberia, including support from foreign partners, spent on building integrity institutions, building those structures. And what this government did, just threw them down. So I think we need to return to that place where, look, have you all heard anything about the Financial Intelligence Unit since we have appointed somebody? You know, what happened to the Internal Audit Agency? Instead of only the fact that auditors got killed, the Director General got killed from there, what happened to that institution? You know, so institutions are built to survive over time and to execute certain very important tasks. You know, if we can re-establish and strengthen all of these integrity institutions, we will start stamping out corruption and impunity in our country. We need to go back and say, look, whatever it requires, and there's some things there. Look, I always say this, we got some very good laws on the book. It requires implementation. And I don't care what's the name of the public corporation or the public institution or the government agency. The name is the name, but you require men with concept, with principles, with professionalism to execute, to move those institutions. So again, it depends on the citizen. Whoever is appointed to a position is entrusted with authority. It depends on how well you can move it and how well do the citizens respond as well. You know, in all of this discussion we'll be having, our citizens are not removed from responsibility. Citizens also have national responsibilities. A policeman stands on the street and stretches his arm. If you as a citizen do not extend your arm to him, he doesn't get anything. You understand? That's civil responsibility. You can also report that police officer. But what we do, we get home from travel, we get to the country, and while we're waiting for our luggage, somebody comes to us and say, so give me something, I will take it, I will forget when you go through the inspection, and we do that. And then we come and criticize somebody. What we do, we are aiding, abetting, and promoting corruption. So it's a national responsibility that our citizens have as well. You know, so I think to do that, to send these things out, the government has to engage in actions that will send a clear message out to the citizenry that we are not accepting this going forward. And the only way to do that is to see that people who are considered untouchable, people are being investigated and prosecuted and punished. We have to do that. And I think with this, we all are very happy that our country is not going to go through this another torture 6 years of what we experienced. And we are very hopeful that the Boakai administration coming in, we begin to set ground rules. We begin to pave the road for people to see that the Bureau has a hope of rebounding again, and we can bounce up and develop. You know, we all have that inspiration that It's a new government coming in, and we're looking forward to new things. Because how far can our country go to its knees? How far can it go again? We need to come up. And so that trajectory of development, of accountability, responsibility, whether it's in the economic sector, whether it's in the political, social justice sector, we need to. And the way a nation develops is to insist on the rule of law. No matter what the circumstances are, let the law, the applicable law apply. And so we need to demonstrate that. I am hoping that in the first 3 to 4 months of the new administration, there will be actions in this direction. Letting the people know that the issue of corruption is not going to be accepted. We investigate, we prosecute people, and then expanding things so that the economy can actually grow for the people, that people will have opportunity, and that people will begin to look away from public office rather than go into the private sector. So we're also sustaining their livelihood rather than depending on getting government job, for survival. Because we need to have a small government in terms of payroll, in terms of population, but we need to have an effective government in terms of the machinery, in delivering services and what have you. I think the private sector is that. But importantly, I will always come back to the issue of corruption. We need to investigate, we need to prosecute, we need to make sure that the rule of law applies. Because again, when people go to court, this has been another critical area of our development. The lack of confidence in the justice system, in the judicial system. When people have issues, whether it's in private matter, whether it's in commercial matter, when they go to court, they want to be confident that if they're right, they go to court, they will get justice. So these are the kind of things that I think the government needs to look at and start placing people in those places where they can actually deliver what we need. And I'm very hopeful, just like all of you, that we can return. For some of us who were actually forced out of the country, we're looking at the opportunity of returning and engaging in our life again, whether in the professional, private sector, or again, be able to go back home, engage in productive services without looking over your shoulder and think somebody is coming back, to hurt you. Look at the issue of death that occurred in the country. None of them, most of them not investigated, have not been concluded. They stay hanging. Why would a population be subjected to this kind of level of fear and apprehension? So people need to be safe when they're home. That's where it comes to do with policing and all of that. Security is important. People will feel safe. People will work and they will want to contribute to the development of the country if they feel safe. And look, just yesterday or day before yesterday, a young lady was beaten up brutally, because they asked her who she voted for. I understand, and she probably did not vote for CDC. This lady was brutalized. I understand she's been flown to Ghana now for. How can people be so unsafe? What happened to Liberians? Will they just stand by and allow a rule to be beat? What has happened to us? So we need a complete rehabilitation of our psyche. What can we expect? We have something we call people's action. People are supposed to come to the rescue of people when they're being victimized by other people like that. But instead of standing around, just take video. So there's something wrong with that psyche. We need to rehabilitate these people again, all of us, So it's a big challenge. No government going to succeed just in 1 year or 2 years after inheriting what they're going to be inheriting. But what the people always say? They say when the Christmas will be good, you can tell from the Christmas Eve, and the Eve. So we see what this government is going to do coming once it gets in, and how it's going to adapt policy, who they're going to give authority to do certain things. And we remain hopeful that we all can help the government get to where it's supposed to be, so that we can get back on the path of economic development, respecting the rule of law and social justice. So thank you guys for your participation, and we look forward to much more discussion.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Verdier. And again, guys, let me convey my sincere thanks to all of you for the role you play to keep us going. I'd like to thank the audience, those who've been watching. We've been receiving some inputs from viewers all around our LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. We'll continue this again next Sunday. I do appreciate all your participation. I'd like to leave us with this message from Dr. Adelius Bowen. He said, diaspora Liberians have a major role to play in the development of Liberia. And so one thing I would recommend is that Liberians abroad should first organize themselves. With that, let's come to the end of our show today. And I look forward to meeting again with you guys in the next set of editions. Again, reach out to me if you have a name you think we should use going forward. Thank you very much again for showing up here.
Yeah, thank you all.
Yeah.
Go ahead, you want something to say?
Was it Benedict? No, I was just saying thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Francis.
You say you're asking for the name?
Yeah.
I already throw one there.
Yeah.
For me, I would just say, that limit the topic to one,
Yes.
so we can have a lot of time discussing, an issue. I think it will be, especially when it comes to the legal process, the rule of law, and other things. So we just limit ourselves to it, and you bring the expertise on that. If you finance, bring the expertise on that, and see how to discuss it. All over the places, and it can be very difficult.
I really enjoyed it back and forth, though, but I mean, I don't think that.
Yeah.
Sorry, you stay in Liberia?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, man. Must be enjoying that place, man.
I
wish I would retire and be there with you.
Yeah, I'll soon be getting back, but I came to do some work here. Tomorrow I get back on the road.
I want to come down for the inauguration, but I'm not too sure yet.
Yeah, like myself, I wasn't sure, so I bought my ticket for February.
Yeah.
Rather than, because we wanted to go spend the Christmas December, but we're all apprehensive, thinking how this thing was going to end. It was going to be chaos and what have you. So we pushed our tickets. We pushed our ticket all the way to February. We already finished paying for it. So, and the thing
if you plan to come and you want to sew a suit, let me know. I know Maxwell Kimaya Taylor.
It's funny you say that. Those boys like Maxwell and them, we all grew up in that Beaumont era. I know these boys, and I just wonder how these boys can come out and just change. I was gonna ask James. Is your brother with Jerome?
Yeah, Jerome's my younger brother.
Same thing happened when I met Jeremiah Shulonte for the first time, because the only Shulonte I knew was Gatet. When I ran the 97 election, I was running campaign for Great Watterson. I knew Gatet. So when I saw him, Shulonte, I thought it was him. Only for me to meet Jeremiah. He's a younger brother of Gatet. I said, oh my God. Yeah. So here we are. Yeah.
So you have the rest of your Sunday.
I mean, I know Shulonte very well. Shulonte was one of the presidents who were always surrounded behind when you were with Great Watterson.
Yeah.
Yeah. I very well.
We started the AIPP around 1994. At the opposite of the City Hall. We had the Association of Independent Political Parties.